Rogue's hybrid power bar has some killer features that make me really like this bar, and it also leaves me hoping some of the things Rogue has done in this bar make it into their other offerings, because they've stepped up their game with this one. This is Rogue's latest power bar, but what makes it unique versus their extensive catalog of American-made barbells is that they've combined some popular aspects of their bars while taking their manufacturing to another level. So in this video, we're gonna break down what they've done, literally, because I pulled this thing apart, dropped it, and really beat on it to see not only what's different about it, but how well it'll hold up. As someone with a logical barbell collection I've acquired over the years, there comes a time in every man's life where he has to take a risk and debate whether another barbell is worth his wife's reaction. But you see, I've discovered a clever way around getting her mad. I didn't buy this bar for me, I bought it for her. And if I get to use it from time to time, it's just a happy coincidence. But you still feel free to use those affiliate links because I did pay full price for this. So although this one was worth the risk, she may kill me if I keep losing money on these Rogue videos. Rogue's combination of a slightly smaller shaft diameter, this one is at 28.5 millimeters versus the 29 millimeters you typically see on a power bar like Rogue's Ohio power bar, and a more aggressive knurl. This is actually the same knurl that you'll find on their Agro 2X bar, which we'll talk about more in a minute. Well, it's not an entirely original idea. It's somewhat in line with Kabuki's Columbia power bar, a Texas power bar, Fringe's Lone Star bar, and others. But what Rogue has done here that really makes this bar stand out in their lineup is refine their manufacturing. And by that, I mean what they've done with the sleeves. But don't get too excited. The end caps are still pretty awful. Rogue spent a lot of time researching, developing, and refining their barbells using all kinds of fancy scientific magic that I'm gonna ignore and boil down into this. They've tightened their tolerances, and those changes are important because they mainly affect two things which I've gone out of my way to test in the most technical ways possible. The first and less exciting of the two is in the spin of the sleeves, which I've developed a very intricate way of testing by spinning a plate on a bar. But I've outdone myself this time by spinning that same plate on, wait for it, multiple bars. And you'll notice there's slightly less spin because of those tighter tolerances and maybe their use of grease in the sleeves. But since this is a power bar, as indicated by the aggressive knurling, it only having powerlifting knurl marks in this center knurl, you probably won't be using it for ollie lifts and cleans unless you're into that sort of pain. So I don't think the spin is really that important. Where the new sleeve construction improves things is that it has resulted in less axial and radial end flow, which is a fancy way of saying there's less jiggles in the sleeves, as you can see by this very technical test. So this is a hybrid bar, right? You can't really hear anything. This is the Ohio power bar. Hear a little bit of jiggle. And then the Texas power bar. So all that really just makes for a more refined feeling and sounding bar, and that's important because it's quieter. Not that I don't love the experience of loading deep dish plates and deadlifting while my baby is asleep. Granted, these rib sleeves are still pretty loud when compared to smooth sleeves, but which you like will come down to personal preference. My second test of the sleeves was as rigorous as the first. I actually debated nerding out and taking the calipers out for this one, but Rogue's quality control in this bar has also increased, and they already did all that work for me on the barbell tag, so I instead performed the high-tech method of dropping a bunch of bars to see how loud they are. And this is definitely much quieter than an Ohio power bar or similarly constructed bar, which are almost ear-piercingly loud, but the hybrid bar is much less so and more muffled. And this is where I see the bar really standing out. This sounds and feels much more like a premium barbell. And believe me, with kids or lifting in a space where sound can be a factor, it can matter. But I will say the plates you're using in your flooring are probably a bigger factor than your barbell. But it did get me to thinking the hybrid power bar may share some similarities with their Ohio 2.0 S bar they literally built to be a quieter bar. So I took the sleeves apart on this one, but I found that the 2.0S actually uses a different system for the sleeves and shaft, as well as using polymer bushes, whereas this is identical to an Ohio Power Bar, Ohio Bar, or a lot of other bars we have here. Same sleeve construction with bronze bushings, same rings and end caps, except this does have the sound dampening end cap the 2.0S has, which is really just a piece of foam stuck to the inside of the cap. And if there's one thing from this bar I hope Rogue brings over to the Ohio Power Bar, it's these improved tolerances. This is a big upgrade and doesn't seem to affect costs, since these two bars are identical in price when the finishes are the same. And speaking of finishes, this has a stainless steel shaft, which is easily my favorite finish since it doesn't affect knurling and your grip like others that fill in the knurling some, and it's also the most resilient to corrosion. But Rogue's proprietary matte black sleeves, I'm not as in love with. I do find them to be an upgrade over many other finishes Rogue offers on their sleeves, but it does still wear. At first, it'll grind on your plate's hub some, and it's a little louder when loading and unloading until you break it in, but these are things I've covered a few times before, so I'll just refer you to our Ohio Power Bar review as I went in depth on the finish there, and I'll follow that up by referring you to our Rep Fitness Arnold equipment reveal vid, where you can see Rep working this same finish into their own bars, which makes this a good place to ask you to subscribe, because I'll be reviewing a bunch of their bars and other companies' bars in the coming months. And that's what we call a classy Gluck self-promotion move. What I'd like to see Rogue do with this bar is offer a fully stainless steel option, because to me, this is a great bar and the sleeve finish is really my only nitpicky complaint. All right, let's get into the knurling, because it's one of the big things on this bar that might draw you to it. Knurling is a difficult thing to quantify since it depends a bit on your personal preferences, but I heard some weirdo online came up with this really awkward system where he syncs up odd-looking pics of cats' tongues to some arbitrary point system for the aggressiveness of knurls. And since I'm that weirdo and I dragged all these bars out here to justify my barbell collection to my wife, here we go. The cat tongue knurling rating system. Your Ohio bar is a 0, a passive but clean knurl. And we'll skip right to a 2 with the Ohio Power Bar, which is an outstanding and more aggressive knurl, and what I'd recommend to most people looking for a power bar. But the hybrid power bar is a 3. As I mentioned earlier, it has Rogue's 2X knurling, which is just the Ohio Power Bar's knurl with higher peaks. So still a volcano style, still clean and well done, as all Rogue's knurls tend to be, but not as aggressive as a Texas Power Bar or Agro 3X, where it almost feels like it's sharp for the sake of being sharp. The 2X knurl, combined with a slightly thinner shaft diameter of 28.5 millimeters, makes this bar a little easier to grip, especially if you hook grip like Winnie and I do, and it's those traits that have made this our secondary deadlift bar and also made it creep into a lot of our pulling workouts. You might also like this knurl if you're like Winnie and you prefer an aggressive knurl on your back during squats. Now, does the slightly thinner shaft diameter affect the whip of the bar? I'm sure a little bit, but I'm not enough of a man to notice much of a difference, and with 200K tensile and 170K yield strengths and Rogue shrinking in the collars about 1/4 of an inch, probably in a move to counter some of that whip, I doubt most people would either. Rogue is clearly attempting to up their game with the hybrid power bar, and I'm all for it as I really like this bar. And if they bring this sleeve construction over to the Ohio Power Bar, it'll give me an excuse to get another one of them. So check out our Patreon and use the affiliate links I've put to these items in the description. Hit that like button to help the channel so my wife doesn't kill me when I do get more bars. And check out our Ohio Power Bar review if you want to listen to me talk about shafts for a while longer. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.